Dr. Jazz.
I listened to the new one, the
Dr.
Tuba Trio
Jazz.
Chronicles #2, and I love this trio, by the way.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. The Tuba Trio Chronicles. Yeah, the original Tuba Trio record, 2015.
Yeah.
Scott Robinson, myself, Warren Smith. We were trying to emulate the original Tuba Trio with Sam Rivers,
Sam, yeah.
myself, Warren Smith, and Sid Smart occasionally on drums, Barry Ashall sometimes. So there were a multitude of drummers that came through the trio, but Warren was the one that was documented in the Bimhouse recordings, the ones that were done in Amsterdam, where it was just a single night, but the guy managed to put out 5 CDs on those projects. Yeah. But it was wonderful. So I wanted to honor Sam by trying to put together a project to honor the tuba trio, and I got Scott and Warren together, and we put it together. It actually in Scott's studio. We worked right in Scott's studio. He built a studio in his garage in the back of his house, and we recorded everything down there. We got John Rosenberg, who's one of the great remote recorders. He does some amazing live recordings for many labels and everything. We got legendary John Rosenberg.
Yeah.
And he came and recorded the whole thing for us. So it was a wonderful session and everything. And then we released that, and that did well. Then, unfortunately, 2016, we had a major incident with me. Well, where I lost my wife into a really bad accident in 2016. And the people in the trio, Warren and Scott, they kind of gathered around me, and because I was thinking about giving up music, whatever, giving up music, giving up life, giving up, because we were high school sweethearts. We were married for 45 years. We had a amazing relationship. We were building, we're building this, building a family, building a business, building love and rapport. And she recently retired, so we're thinking about enjoying our retirements, because I was a school teacher also. So I retired from teaching school, and formerly teaching school. And so I would now be able to, travel the world and play music, and she was going to accompany me and everything. And then that accident happened. So they gathered around me, and, they supported me. And through that support, we recorded, we began to record music, to honor her. Bill Cole, another friend and mentor, he did a whole project, centered around her memory and everything. And then I put together the tuba trio again. And then, this is of course, I know you have the cover, everything, the tuba trio too. And I have Warren and Scott, the original trio. But then Bill, who supported me tremendously during that period, I asked him to join me. His daughter, Althea, I asked her to join also. And the other person was the great Craig Harris, the very prolific composer. Yeah. I worked with him for many. In fact, a few days before my wife passed away, we did a performance at Craig's home, what they call Parlor Jazz, where Harlem Brownstones. So we did a performance with the trio so that was the last performance that she attended. So Craig really, his family and his support system really, cradled me and everything and supported me during that time. So I brought all those people together to join the trio. I call it the Tuba Trio Chronicles because it's basically the trio. Myself, Warren, and Scott, and then all these supportive guests. To strengthen the music, but strengthen the support system. That we were support. They were supporting me. but as they were supporting me, I began to realize that that everybody has little dark things that happened in their life and everything. So by supporting me, they were also supporting things that they were going through quietly, and a lot of that came out. So it became a therapeutical session.
Healing session, yeah.
For me, work with these, and then this album reflects it. With the titles and everything. If you go through the titles that's why I was so very, very careful, giving detailed information on each track. But it's really a album to help me, help me along with the healing process. And even though it's been quite a while ago, those type of things, that type of trauma, you really never heal from. It's type.
Sure.
I mean, I know people, I've talked to people that have lost people much longer than I have. And they still say, you wake up in the night and you think the person's sitting right next to you, and then you reach out and it's really, so a lot of that is in the music. The music is pretty, open, free, and everything, but it's therapeutical for us, and people that have been listening to it says, they're starting to receive, as they understand and listen to it, they're starting to understand how all that works for them also, as far as music as a healing force, which John Coltrane, the latter part of his career, that was his thing. He wanted to heal through music. He used the music to heal people and everything. And the kind of sounds and spiritual sounds that he was going for was sounds to heal both himself and the audiences that he performed for. So that type of concept has a historical docking, through Coltrane, of course, others also. Obviously. But specifically Coltrane, because they I just grew like that the legendary track "A Love Supreme." I mean, when Love Supreme came out, I must have played the record. I must have wore out 10 copies of it. Playing it over. It was just such an amazing music that kind of like swept into your soul. It was so deep and everything, and just listening to it was just like it just vitalized you and inspired you, and you were just captivated by the sound of that saxophone and the members of the rhythm section that he had, McCoy and of course Elton, and so it was just something. So that this new album comes out of that legacy.
Yeah, I wanted to tell you, like, before you even said that it sounds so spiritual. It's no sense of egos when I listen to the music. It's like music. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. That's what the idea I got when I listened to it. I was like, damn.
No. The thing is, when you're dealing with great musicians, and I don't know if you know that Warren Smith just released a book on his life, his biography, of his life and everything, and he comes from a legacy of musicians, going back generations and generations and everything. And then he worked with just about every musician in the field and everything. And he is greatness personified. He's one of the greatest musicians, and he, of course, he's totally unknown to the public, to most of the public. In fact, I think Downbeat about a few years ago released a poll saying up and coming musician.
I know, I remember. That's terrible, man.
That was like, oh my God, up and coming Warren Smith. Oh my goodness, so
rising stars, I think.
He was the public. But this guy, this guy is one of the great musicians. So we deal with people like that, Warren, and of course, Scott Robinson's his legacy in the groups, and multi-instrumentalist and phenomenal player, and a good guy, good family guy, good guy, a wonderful person, and he gave me a lot of support because I mean, playing instruments and all that. I mean, my horns were just sat there for for months and months.
Sure.
And Warren, Bill Cole, everybody just on this particular project. They encouraged me to kind of like pick those things up. And in fact, we Scott did kind of muscled me into it by offering me. He said, I got a gig, and you get a chance to I have a double belt euphonium, which I play very, very rarely. Euphonium with the two bell. So so he says, I got a gig for you playing double bell euphonium with a group he's putting together to do a performance at the Stone. So I said, I haven't touched my instruments in months. He says, whatever you bring is okay.
That's important.
So I did that. I did that concert, with him, and it slowly got me back. But that's the kind of things that that's the untold story in the release of this
album.
Project.
Yeah, it's I think it's so strongly reflected in the music, really. It's because it's just like a meditation in a sense, almost. Like, I don't know. That's the feeling, like I said, like that I get.
Well, the thing is, when you're dealing with open improvisation, basically I had a graphic score, which was a graphic outline of what I wanted, the colors and I wanted, and a lot of the colors that I was looking for were based on ritual music, from different cultures, ritual music from different, African ritual music, Indian ritual music, American ritual music, which, coming out of New Orleans, like the second line, going in with the really slow dirge and then picking it, all of those traditions and everything. So the graphic score outlined, the tradition we're moving towards and everything. And then I figured, the instrumentation I would like to have, the colors I would like to use and everything. And then we just started and we played. We just played, and everybody, kind of evoked the mood that they wanted. They knew what I needed, to heal, and as they were doing what they were doing as the healing process in the studio with me, and we also did a live performance also at Firehouse 12 in New Haven, and that's a lot of this was recorded both live and in studio mixes and everything, and they began to they began to heal with the stuff that they had to do. And then the audience, we had question and answers in the audience, and we discussed concept and everything. And then the audience members, they chimed in, about, the importance of hearing this music and how healing it was for them and how enjoyable experience it was for them. So,
yeah.
So people, I would recommend, but the thing is, I tried not to put it on Spotify or something like that, because I think, with this, I don't think listening to one track and pick out your favorite track and all that stuff. It's a type of thing where I think you really have to just put some time down and just kind of like listen through the whole thing, because it ends with a beautiful thing, an ode to life by Don Pullen, one of Don Pullen's compositions. And I met him, when I was working with Sam, and he was just such a joy. He was such a joyous man, always very enthusiastic, musically brilliant, pure genius. And so we ended the album with Ode to Joy by Don Pullen, which is a beautiful ballad. And everything.
Yeah. You mentioned Sam Rivers before, and he's, for me, I'm a guitarist, and I've played with so many guys that you've played also, and he's everyone's hero, like, and mine included, as a composer and an improviser, like. And you have the lovely box set behind you, the Archive series, which
came
out last year, and How did you meet Sam and end up playing with him? When was that? Do you remember? Like when?
Oh yeah, yes. It's you also know Rick Lopez's book, right? The Sam River
Yeah.
Sessionography.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. While Rick was doing the book, he kind of asked me for interviews and archival material that I have, and I gave him a lot of archival material. So I went through that stuff. So all that stuff is now fresh, back fresh in my mind and everything. But when Sam left Boston and came to New York, his goal was to put together a New York ensemble, mainly to play his music.
Yeah.
Because Sam is one of those composers, just like another person I work with, Carla Bley. Writing to them is not like I gotta be, they talk to some composers, I gotta be inspired, to write a piece. Or I have a record day coming up, then I'll write for 5 pieces. And Sam, Carla Bley, and people of, those composers of that level of achievement, every day they write. So Sam is, whether we'll be traveling on a plane or a train, Sam has a little book out, he's writing, and the same thing. The same thing with Carl, they're just constantly writing and everything. So Sam, when he passed away, left hundreds of pieces that have yet to be recorded.
Oh man, yeah.
He recorded a bunch of stuff, but the University of Pittsburgh now has his archives.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
there are tons and tons of material that has not been recorded. He was so prolific with his compositional output that a lot of that stuff has not yet been recorded. But anyway, when he came from Boston, he had a bunch of that music already, they're in its earliest forms and everything. And he moved into Harlem and lived in Harlem initially with his wife Bee and his children.
Yeah.
And he decided to start a rehearsal band. He said, he put out a notice in the community that he has a rehearsal band. He'd be rehearsing every week at a middle school. Let me just look up the middle school name just real quick and everything. So he said he would have rehearsals every week at the Mary McLeod Bethune School in Harlem. Mary McLeod Bethune School in Harlem. So he put out a call for musicians, and eventually I got the word that Sam Rivers at that time, who I did not know who he was, of course, but unfortunately for me, so he put out a word. He's having rehearsal, and people said, well, the music is, people that have been said music is quite difficult. A lot of people come for the first or two, maybe 1 or 2 rehearsals, and then they out of it. It's very, very difficult. So so I said, okay, I'll come down. So I came down and I joined in the regular rehearsals every week and everything, and it went well. Sam really Sam could hear everything. Of course, he got the scores, and plus he the music, and he's out of the oral tradition. Even though it's written on paper, he sings every phrase to you. He sings everything how he wants it. The nuances and stuff, the accents, the crescendos, the decrescendos, the swells, and he sings all that stuff. Via the oral tradition, and then after he sings it, then you of course interpret what he just sang by playing the same phrases and stuff. The phraseology that he used in his singing, he used in the playing of everything. So I stayed with the Harlem band, for a while and everything. And then Sam decided to move downtown and start Studio Rigby, downtown Manhattan, down Bond Street, downtown on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. So he moved down there because he wanted a place. I mean, a school is a school, but it has certain restrictions. You could rehearse there certain hours of the day and everything. You could not, it's not a place where you could have people hanging out and and talking and discussing, and you know, you had to come in, use the facilities, and get out because they had other people coming in after you. So he wanted a more open environment where he could, you know, rehearse the band, you know, also do performances, and also, you know, have workshops and set it up as a gathering place where people can come down and talk about music, you know, take lessons and just hang out, you know, with other people and you know, have, you know, good conversations after the concert, rather than have to get out because, you know, the school's getting ready to close and you have to get out. So he opened up the Studio Ripley place, the performance place, you know, brought, of course, the Harlem, at that time was called the Harlem Ensemble Big Band. That Harlem Ensemble Big Band, he brought that down into Studio Ripley, and that became the Studio Ripley Orchestra. And everything. So the Studio Ripley Orchestra then began to rehearse down there, and the whole Studio Ripley's began to build and everything, because Sam began to, you know, do the concerts, and then he would, you know, bring other groups like the Harlem Opera. They had opera down there. They had you know, art gallery showings. You know, he began to became a cultural institution, you know, surrounded by, you know, the master and genius Sam Rivers. So he was the center of it all, but he reached out in the community and brought everyone that wanted to develop a cultural presence and have a place to, inexpensively. Most of the time he didn't even charge people for rehearsing. The same thing with Warren Smith. Warren Smith had a loft, Studio Wiz, and you come in and rehearse there and everything, and then and if you had money, Warren would say, okay, how much? I got $2, okay, or forget about it, or whatever, So it was a place. Studio Whitby, Studio Wiz. These were places where you can go, play music, anything you wanted to play to express yourself. And when you came into Studio Ribby, Sam didn't say, well, you got to start off with standards, play a couple of standards, and then do your, you just wanted to scream all night. Sam, and the audience were both, they were. They wanted to hear what you were working on at that particular time. So a lot of the great musicians, came through there, like the World Saxophone Quartet, Hamlet Blewett and that, but Henry Threadgill came through, and a lot of great musicians came through, and that was their first exposure to that was their first exposure in New York was in Studio Ripley, and other clubs heard about them, and they began to make the rounds both locally and internationally and everything. In fact, a lot of people when they came to New York didn't even have a place to stay, like Steve Coleman. When Steve Coleman came to New York, he didn't have a place to stay. So guess what happened? Sam took him in. So he lived with Sam for the first few years that he was in New York, and of course living with Sam, surrounded by all of that music every day and all that stuff, and that work ethic that Sam had, where every day he wrote and he practiced and he taught lessons, and then he would give concerts, and all that. I mean, you can imagine a day like that, plus raising the family, a big family, a good sized family. You can imagine. Well, anyway, that developed into the first Rivby orchestra album, called Crystals on Impulse. I know you have a copy of that. That was a pivotal album for many big bands, because no big band was sounding like it. Maybe Sun Ra, but Sun Ra, I wouldn't really. Yeah, I mean, Sun Ra would have big aggregations. Sometimes, you go see Sun Ra would be 10 people, and sometimes it'd be 50 people.
Yeah.
So, but I wouldn't consider, even though it was a big, you can call it, but out of the big band tradition of instrumentations and everything, I think Sam, using that big band, tradition of instrumentation and everything, produced a sound like no one ever heard before. Nobody,
Yeah.
I mean, it was never a big band that sounded like that previous to the release of Crystals and everything. So that developed, that developed release Crystals, and it turned out to be a good thing for me, mainly because when Sam was listening to it, he listened to the playbacks and all that stuff. And then a couple of months later, he calls me up and he says, you did some very interesting things on that big band album. He says, I want you to come down to the studio for a minute, and let's do some playing. So you gotta realize from this point, from previous to this, every time I went with Sam, there were like 15, 20 other musicians down there. I got down there, greet everybody, and then Sam take out the charts and put them down, and we go to big band rehearsals, and he would do his oral tradition thing, and so there was like a thing that that when he said to come down to the studio that I was expecting. So I got down to the studio. Sam was there. I was there, and no one else.
Oh wow! Okay.
I said, "Oh my God, what's?" I said, maybe everybody's late or something. I don't know. Anyway, so Sam says, "Okay." He takes out his horn. He tells him to take out my horn, and he says, "Okay, just follow me," and he just starts playing. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it is an amazing story, and I'm saying to myself, what does he mean? Follow him, because Sam was a virtuoso. I mean, it's not like he was playing. This guy was all over the saxophone, in and out. In tonal, atonal, in and out of time. Time. He would go hit time. And then he would. From the tenor, he would go to the soprano, then to the piano, then to the flute, and and I'm sitting there with my tuba, and so I said, Stan said, finally jump in, just come in and do something, So I came in, and I found my way through, and then after a while, I began to hear certain things that he was playing that, actually he was cueing me on what he wanted. I just had to, be calm enough. I mean, it's a whole thing with playing improvised music that a lot of people call so-called free jazz and everything. And some people do that. They do the free jazz thing where they're playing and they don't know what the person next to them is playing. The person behind them, they have no idea what else is going on around them. They're free. They do whatever they want. But what Sam was doing, was applied theoretical concepts and everything. So he had specific ideas of the form that he wanted. It was just not written down, and it was not explained, and it didn't follow any like ABA form or any type of structure form like that. It was it was open and it could go anywhere, change any key, go into any tonality. It can go out out of tonality or in tonality, and you can go into time or out of time. All of that stuff, happening simultaneously and everything. But he was cueing all that stuff on his instrument and everything. So I began to hear, certain times when he would drop into certain key regions and come out of key region. I would hear him play time, and then when he played time, I played time. When he went free, went free. When he go to a ballad, I went to a ballad. When he went to up tempo fast, I went up tempo fast. So I began to figure this stuff out and kind of get my bearings on everything. And then when he figured that, okay, now he's starting to understand, at least how to jump into he's into the shallow end of the pond. So let's pull him into the deep end by, bringing down the drummer. But now the next element comes in. The drummer comes in. Sid Smart. I think there was a couple of drummers before Sid came. But anyway, so Sid came, Sid Smart. and everything. So now you have this other element that I got to deal with, working with the drummer and everything, and interpreting. So both of us have to work together, interpreting what Sam wanted, and spontaneous, without any cues, anything. I mean, all the stuff was spontaneous on the spot. When he changed on a dot. He changed. He just spun on a dime. So you just and now I have to do it, but also have to coordinate with the drummer to do it. And so all three of us are working together, as a unit. So anyway, so it evolved. The rehearsals got better and better. I got more and more confident and everything, and everything, and I felt, that I was making headway and everything. And then Sam comes in. Okay, we're leaving for Europe.
Oh wow, shit! Which year was that?
1977.
Okay.
Yeah, or 71. Yeah, well, it was during the time. The album it was documented. The album is called Black Africa.
Yeah.
On Horror Records. On her, I think that's 19. No, I think it's 1971. Matter of fact, 1971. Yeah, yeah. I think it was here earlier. It was earlier than 77. 71. No, but I got my dates. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
you might have to
I'll
look
check,
that
yeah.
one up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Black Africa. We went to Italy and we did a series of concerts in Italy with the Tuba Trio, the National Tuba Trio, and the board recordings. Sam would ask for the board recordings afterwards. An Italian official said, "No, those things are for archival purpose. They will never be released. These are for for our documents and everything." And then of course, before we got back home,
Yeah.
Horror Records had two CDs out. I mean, two vinyls out already on everything. On it. It's just amazing how the business works anyway. And everything. So the initial Tuba Trio was that with that, and then you saw how it evolved and stuff, and just going to, and then so we get to Italy, and I have no idea. I still have no idea, even at this time in my life, exactly who Sam Rivers is. The kind of following he had, the kind of following he had internationally. I had, but we do. We came in the first concert. We sit down. I think R. Blakey and the Jazz Messages opened the concert and everything.
Oh.
And then we came on with the three of us and everything, and people, and you looked out, and it was done in this open plaza in Italy. The way Italians do things, open plaza. Beautiful architecture surrounding. Just a beautiful location and everything. And you looked out into the audience, and you just saw heads for blocks and blocks, and people were just jammed into the space like God. And I'm looking up and everything, and then Sam did what he did in the studio, at rehearsals, and nothing changed. He just boom, let's go, and we went, and then and I'm playing, and I'm wondering, are they fake? Because they just heard Art Blakey, the Jazz Message, a traditional group with some of the greatest musicians that ever lived. Are they getting what we're doing? So we're playing, and we finished out. We finished the set, and everybody jumped up and roared, and they screamed, and we must have did about 3 or 4 encores that night. It was just unbelievable, man. And then for all the Italian kids, it went like that. Yeah, people would just they would sit quietly listening, and they wouldn't make a peep and stuff, and then boom, as soon as we finished, they wouldn't let you off the stage. They wanted more and more and more. They couldn't get, the sound was so captivating for them to see these musicians, individually working together and everything, and presenting this kind of new sound, even though it had a historical, bearing, with previous musicians, but a fairly new sound for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Amazing.
And then the so we came back, and then for some strange reasons, I don't know. I need to talk to Sid, but I'm still not sure why Sid left the ensemble. But Sid left, and then we got Warren Smith, and then Warren Smith and myself and Sam, we came back to Europe, and this time we wasn't in Italy, went to Netherlands, and of course Amsterdam, and went to the BIM house and recorded, with the famous Tuba Trio album. Album that came out.
More, yeah.
So that's how that all evolved.
Amazing. Yeah, that must have been such a school for you, right? University. I mean, basically,
it was it was the ultimate university, because when you're working with a musician like that, you're not only learning music and theory and harmony and all kinds of stuff. You're learning a worth ethic also of practicing on a regular basis and working, constantly working on new material. Physically, because of the size of my instrument, but also it's with Sam. Also, he playing the saxophone is also quite demanding. I mean, we would get up and we would walk together, run together. Exercise. You got to get into. I mean, just physically, because you're talking about. Sometimes we would play 2-hour sets, nonstop 2 hours.
That's heavy. Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, so the whole thing about being physically fit and mentally acute and ready to perform. You also learn that, but you also learn about life, how how to deal on the road, as African American male. You learn those type of things too, and everything, and you learn a whole bunch of life skills just besides the musical skill and the total enjoyment that you have and everything. But the main thing you learn from people like that is the sense of self-empowerment, self-determination, that they will never this is their goal in life, and this is what they want to do, and they know how many hours they put into practice and working on their craft and everything, and they will not be distracted by people that have no musical knowledge and no idea what they're doing, but they've been given the title of critic, so I'm a critic now. So just like when John Coltrane put out Giant Steps, that's too many notes and stuff. That's not music. That's not jazz. And then I mean it's and then Giant Steps is still historic album, still is very. So the whole thing when you're dealing with a critic, he has to write something, and unfortunately it's based on the amount of knowledge the person has, and some of them just don't have the depth of knowledge to write about a music that's constantly evolving. Just like with Miles, I mean, Miles said he could have played My Funny Valentine for his entire career.
Yeah, exactly.
And people would have been happy, man. He could have came out and played My Funny Valentine and four, he could have played that for his whole career, but he forced himself to kind of move along. The same type of thing with Sam. He just forced himself to move along. Because Sam knew all the standards. He could play all the tunes and everything. He could have came out and played tunes and did bossa nova stuff, rhythms, and go in a whole different commercial direction, which a lot of other saxophonists and a lot of musicians were doing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Try to support your family that way, by playing tunes, nothing. But he took the road that most people don't take. He takes the road towards creative and empowerment and creative development to become a greater to pursue greatness on no matter what the cost. And that's with Sam, that's with Howard Johnson, that's with Warren Smith, Bill Cole, Mulhall, Richard Abrams. These guys, the kind of guys that I was surrounded with, and with everything. So they would pretty much uncompromising, since they weren't chasing money. I mean, it was you couldn't really approach them by saying, okay, well, I want you to play this, I want you to play that. You hired Sam, you hired Mulhall, you hired the other musicians I referenced, and you knew when they came, they're going to play. Sam Rivers is going to play Sam Rivers, whatever that is during that period of time that he's working and everything. And there's no way in the world that you could mention to him even, let me hear a little bit about your soul there. Could you? You wouldn't even mention that because it wasn't going to happen. But what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to dock his pay. He's not playing it. He's not doing a gig for money anyway. He's doing it for another level of everything. So those are the guys I grew up with and had mentored me as a youngster in New York, and everything, and that's why I do what I do now. Yes, that's why I do what I do now, because of that background that surrounding myself with self. Because even me, my first CD that I put out, the Seven Deadly Sins.
Yeah, that's like I love that one, man. It's such a beautiful record. Such a beautiful record.
Yeah. So the thing is, when people hear that record, they say, well, it's such a great record. You probably had no trouble, putting it together and releasing it and everything. I said, oh. First of all, you heard, the stuff I was doing, the people I was working with. You have my resume and everything. So you figure, this guy, I should, be a record company executive. Let me give this guy a call and see. If there's a project that he might be interested in doing. Okay, we'll give him little to no budget, but maybe I didn't even get that call. I didn't even get a call, like that. So years went by, and I was teaching school and playing, and doing these gigs and playing with some of the great musicians and everything, including people like also Taj Mahal and other musicians of that level, and never got a call for anything. But then I realized there were also a whole other group of musicians that weren't getting calls for anything. And recording projects and anything. So my wife and myself, we sat down. And we said, okay, we should save up the money and do the project ourselves. So I said, okay. What I'll do is I'll go in, I'll write the compositions and everything, and during that time I was lucky enough to get a fellowship with the McDowell Institute, so I became a McDowell Fellow, and that's where you go up and you spend a month. They give you room to write, write music for a month and everything. So at McDowell Colony, and I wrote, the Seven Deadly Sins, a little over a month, and in Iceland, it's beautiful. Iceland, they give you a cabin in the woods, and you piano, and no one's allowed in your cabin unless you invite them. And then every day, the guy from lunch, even the guy that brings lunch every day to you, he puts it outside. He doesn't
that's fantastic.
No one's allowed. You could be in there sleeping, or you could be in there working. It doesn't matter. Whatever your creative process is, So anyway, so I just, and then they provide housing for sleeping, but I never went to a sleeping place. I kind of wrote I wrote all day, all into the night and everything, and then just took naps and stuff. So
Oh,
So I wrote the Seven Deadly Sins, and then I came back to New York, and then had to contract the musicians and find the copy the parts and print
yeah.
out the scores and all the technical stuff that goes in with that. So I said, okay, so I'll do that. And then I'll record this material, and then I'm sure a record company will pick it up then because it'll be So anyway, I recorded the material and everything, and then began to shop it around.
Yeah.
You know what it sounded like. I mean, it was just beautiful. You figure, the first person that's going to hear it is going to grab it. So he shopped it around. Nobody's interested. Oh
Wow.
my God. Oh, so the next step, it was like, okay, I'm gonna have to start my own label to get this stuff out. And so I began that process. Um, so that whole process,
Yeah.
and as I was going through that process, fortunately enough, I was working. Was working and still working with a band called Hazmat Modine, which is a
Yeah.
eclectic type of blues band. Everything. They have the label that they're on is called Jaro, and it's based in Bremen, Germany, and he was releasing the Hazmat Modine albums and everything. So the leader of the ensemble, Wade Schumann, wrote, he had a series of, he's also a painter. He had a series of paintings based on the Seven Deadly Sins that I referenced while I was working on the music. I had his paintings, I would just watch his paintings and kind of draw inspiration.
Yeah.
And it also helped me formulate a structure for the rather than just a bunch of big bands pieces that things. It helped me formulate a structure for the CD based on the concept of the Seven Deadly Sins and inspiration from his paintings. So anyway, so he said let me listen to the. So I brought the CD to him, and he listened to it, and he said, okay. So he says he'll release it. So I was very fortunate that he was able to release it because he had a label,
Yeah.
a label structure in place and everything. So he released it, and it did very, very well. It won all kinds of awards, and my debut recording and all that stuff. So it did very, 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 very well.
Yeah.
So,
Did you lead groups before already?
So from there,
In New York, like in the 80s or 90s, or?
I used to see. That's the whole thing about me that a lot of people don't know, and some people do know. Ever since I was in high school, because I went to a fairly prestigious high school called Music and Art High School. The Music and Art High School had a sister school called Performing Arts High School, which that movie Fame, if you ever saw that movie Fame, that high school movie Fame is based on. So I went to that type of school. So it was an environment, where you had some of the top, you had the top New York high school musicians in New York, audition for this school, and they took the cream of the crop, some of the best. So I was very fortunate to get into that school in high school and everything. So once I got into the school, they give you theory, harmony, and and all kinds of brass ensemble lesson, orchestra lesson, private lessons, and so I was well schooled from and plus my junior high school band director, Howard Sapoznik, it was phenomenal. And my elementary school, band director, Mr. Guskin and Mrs. White. I remember all those names because they, all these people had these tremendous influences on me. Teach me. You can imagine taking out a trombone and trying to teach somebody how to play a trombone. Oh my God, how do you begin that process? And so they helped me, get out and learn and everything and evolve and everything. So so in high school, I was surrounded by people like, Jerry Gonzalez, Andy Gonzalez.
Mm.
They went to the same high school. I went to Anaje Allen Gums, was also
Yeah.
another one of my classmates. Anish Sharon Friedman was another classmate of mine. So surrounded, of young musicians. Some were working. In fact, I was working. I was able to, work with, in the Latin circuit on the Lower East Side
Oh,
with
okay.
people. Monquito Santa Maria. Monquito Santa Maria is Mongo's son.
Yeah.
Mongo's
Yeah.
real son. So I worked with, in fact, my first recordings with Monquito Santa Maria. When I was in high school, a little outside of high
Wow.
school, and everything. So anyway, that type of environment, and in those days, in New York and I guess all over the world, when you went to a dance or a social gathering, you heard a live band. In New York, you would hear like a band, a rhythm and blues band would come out, and then a Latin band would come out right after that, and everything. There was no DJs
Yeah.
and all that stuff. We went to a social gathering. So, at an early age, I began to, play with, rhythm and blues bands and Latin bands and everything, and do the whole dance circuit and social circuit that those bands used to do. So I began, that's how I learned to improvise and how I began to, see how bands are structured. So I always had a desire to write. So during that time, I was writing, and I would get so being in a music school, being in an environment like that, you can just grab got your friends out the hallway. I need a trombone, I need a bass, I need a saxophone. Come in, then you come in the room, you hang out the charts, and everybody, let's try this. So you had a chance to experiment with all those sounds and I'm hearing cellos today. And so you go into the cello section. Oh, can you guys come, during lunchtime, can you come into room 507 and let's go? I got some cello parts I want you guys to go. So they will, so that's being in that environment gives you a chance to,
So creative, yeah.
Create and do so. So I was writing from that time. I was writing all the way back then, just writing stuff, always writing stuff. And then I would organize different, every once in a while I would organize different ensembles, and go out and do like, a concert, because they had things like, they still had like jazz vespers, like St. Peter's Church over there. I forgot the pastor that was there, but Genzel, I forgot his name. But anyway, they encourage young musicians and such. So he said, you come to him and say, I got a group. Could I do a jazz vespers? They said, of course. Yeah. And then you come and say, you would come and do a jazz vespers and stuff. And I'll bring them in like 20, 15, 20 musicians and, write out the music and stuff. And we come out and we play the jazz vespers and stuff. And then, and everything. So it didn't lead to much more than that, but everyone knew that I had a desire to write and stuff, and I like organizing bands and stuff. So I began organizing bands and stuff like that, all the way. And then of course then I went to Manhattan School of Music, which is the same thing on a bigger structure. And at Manhattan School of Music, I began to have rehearsal bands, during my free times, after school. It was a real open environment at that time. They allowed me to just, bring musicians that were not student musicians in, and then combine with the student musicians that were studying in Manhattan School of Music. So I organized different big bands and everything, and we would rehearse, and I would, get a concert, here and there with the different big bands. And then it was co-led by a friend of mine, and who I just recently found passed away. His name is James Fleshman. He became a doctor. He left the music business, trying to pursue music to become a doctor. But anyway, we put these big band ensembles together. So we were writing for big bands, and we would when we would go buy records and everything. And there was a place called Sam Goody's, and like once a month they would have like a record sale, like 50% off of. These are the days of vinyls. when we went to buy CDs, I mean not CDs, vinyls. We went to buy vinyls and for the Sam Goodies and everything. We would look at the personnel. We turn the thing over, see who record, and then anything with Oliver Nelson on it, or anything with Grady Tate or Phil Woods, and I mean the top studio musicians. We would just grab them and take them, and then of course Gil Evans and Miles Davis and all that stuff. So we would just go in and grab all of those things, and but the emphasis for both of us were orchestrators, and Johnny Richard, Dan Kenton, that level of orchestration and everything. And then of course we also being fans of Motown, we would Motown, the orchestrations on Motown records, we listen to those and everything. We would go to to a cafe or a bar or something like that, and they would have these jukeboxes in the back and everything. So people would put money in the jukebox and they go dance.
Sure.
We put money in the jukebox and then we put our ear to the speaker, and we would listen to all the orchestrations that, he says, okay, you hear the strings coming in, the horns now, and even down into the percussion. Okay, he's using bongos on, all those wonderful orchestrated things that came out of Motown, during that period of time. And then of course, so those are the kind of things that surrounded me, so that when I began to, and then of course then teaching school too, because I was in charge of the marching band, concert band, choir and theory, advanced theory, so so I had to bone up on, if you're gonna teach kids, you have to bone up on that stuff constantly. So I stayed, so when I was ready to put this project together for the Seven Deadly, I had all this background.
You were prepared,
in fact, I was amazed because when I was I'm not going to mention any names, but some people I read other musicians, they put out a big band, and they said, this is my first time I ever wrote for a big band, and I'm saying, my God, really? I mean, so you'd be surprised how many people never really wrote for big ensemble, like that. They write for quintets and stuff like that, but they never wrote for a big. But I had all this background, knowing, all the great, great orchestrators, and it's, even like Ellington and all that, the sounds, the colors of Ellington, the sounds and color of Gil Evans, which similar, as far as cluster voicings and everything, and certain notes, in the chords that has nothing to do with the actual chord itself. It's just tone colors that kind of brings to So I had all of that. So all that's in the Seven Deadly Sins and everything, and everything, and though the critics were surprised and everything, a lot of my friends, they weren't, because they knew from an early age that I was doing this type of thing at an early age. It's just that just because it's not publicized, that because you're not publicized, because you're not on the cover of Downbeat, people think you're not doing nothing, which is the stuff that you learn from Sam and other people like that. Even though you're not getting notoriety, you still have to work. You still, it's a job, it's a life, it's a career, it's a pursuit. You work, you work your ass off, every day, even though you're not receiving the accolades of some of the other people, So
incredible, man. Yeah, well,
that's the preparation that I had coming into being able to write something like that, and then the instrumentation and personnel was very special because they were all my friends. Similar to what I said in high school. Like I would bring my friends in, the same type of thing with this type of thing. In fact, going all the way to the tuba trio, I use like people that are my friends and stuff. I don't go out and say, well, who was the downbeat Paul
Yeah,
for trumpet?
yeah,
That guy on my album, which some people do,
sure, yeah,
and they pay the guy a whole lot of money to come in
sure,
and do a couple of tunes on an album, and they say, because they're pursuing, a different
different,
thing,
yeah,
pursuing,
It's
just
2:00.
the music thing. But anyway, so that's how all that came about, and that's how I was prepared and ready
yeah,
to do all that stuff. And then of course, the personnel on that album, you got Bob Stewart, you got
yeah. Howard Johnson. I mean, all these guys.
Earl McIntyre,
Yeah,
and myself. Now the four of us were part of Howard's group Gravity,
yeah,
but we also were part of the Taj Mahal tuba band. So we've known each other for years. So that was one, and then I had a brass quintet, ebony brass quintet, with Alfred Patterson, myself, Reggie Pittman, and and Mark Taylor,
yeah,
brass quintet. So they're there. That person of my friends. So it's different groups that I was working with at the same time. So I used that personnel, in the big band set, in the big band setting and everything, and everything. So that's why the sessions, went as smoothly
mm,
as they did. They went went very, very smoothly. And then and then even so anyway, so that's pretty much how that all that album came together, and why it was so successful, and why it was such an enjoyable experience for me and the musicians,
yeah,
and for listeners and
yeah, yeah. Uh, uh, I wanted to ask you, Joe, not to take too much of your time, but like you've done so many records and so many albums. Like you mentioned Carla Bley before. Like, how did you end up in her band? And I guess it was like what, late 70s or beginning of the 80s, and then I mean that led, I guess, to Charlie Haden's Liberation Orchestra, right? Also, or
Oh yeah, the Liberation Orchestra, yeah, and well, Carla, Carla, I worked with Carla, mainly with the Liberation Music Orchestra with Charlie Haden and everything, and then that's again out of the legacy of the people that I was around that mentored
yeah,
me, like Howard Johnson was the original tuba player, that began, a whole lot of legacy. In fact, when Carla heard Howard, her whole concept of writing for the tuba changed overnight.
mm,
She realized that this instrument could do so much more and everything. So she would be, anybody that played tuba in her band would have to kind of, come out of that Howard Johnson
yeah,
pushing the legacy of the instrument. Because it was Howard, and then Jack Jeffers was also recorded on that with Liberation Music Orchestra. Earl McIntyre
oh yeah,
with the Carla Bley band. I don't think he ever recorded with Liberation, even though he did play. He did play with Liberation Music. Bob Stewart
yeah,
played both with the Carla Bley band and Liberation Music Orchestra. So it's a legacy of people that came out of Howard Johnson. Howard Johnson's concept of the tuba could do any. I
yeah,
mean, I can remember Howard's first speech. Tuba could do anything any other instrument could do. Really? And yeah, if you don't have 6 octaves on the tuba, you really nothing. 6 octaves, really have. but I mean, but those are kind of speeches I would hear, and then after a while, you'd be able to say, "Oh man, he has a point there, man."
yeah,
I could. I mean, it was very, very obvious with the tuba trio. It's the type of thing, that I had all that, instilled in me and everything. It was just I needed the people to kind of like force
yeah,
me to pull it out of me. Kind of go down and dig down into things. Okay, now this is the type of thing in it. so and everything. So getting with Carla, and meeting Carla and playing with her band was the band that I played with had Vincent Chansey and as French horn initially. And then Vincent couldn't make the whatever the sessions we did. We did one with the Nina Rota project that he did and then social studies. So Vincent was it was originally orchestrated for French horn, but Vincent couldn't make it. So she wanted to try euphonium. So I came in on those projects. I played euphonium.
Euphonium, yeah,
So
exactly.
Earl McIntyre played the tuba, and I played euphonium. So those two projects I did, and then of course for Liberation Music Orchestra, which I played with for many years. I had the tuba chair, and that came, like I said, right out of the Howard Johnson legacy, and just being very, very fortunate to know him.
Yeah.
And being influenced by him, and the influence he had on the whole music business, as far as from Mingus on, okay, there's no restrictions now on the tuba. I could write anything. I mean, Frank Foster, also all these guys, once they heard Howard and he told them, write what you want, we'll figure it out. And that's what guys began to do. They began to write what they want. And one of the best writers for tuba is my good friend Jason Wong. We worked with the Far East Side Band together. Beautiful records. And then the Burning Bridge projects that I did with Jason Wong. He writes really well for the tuba. He gives it a lot of freedom and everything, and a lot of expressive energy, and a lot of solo space, and like Howard says, write whatever you want, and he'll figure it out. By hook or crook, he'll figure it out how to get it. But Jason Wong is really special, with his tuba writing, really special. Besides being a wonderful musician, great composer, amazing violinist, and one of the nicest people that you would ever want to be around. Him and his wife are so sweet, so sweet people. It's always a joy being around Jason. And like I said, his tuba writing is. I always look forward for anytime Jason has a project. In fact, I think I played on one of his operas too. Tuba on one of his operas. He's amazing, prolific, wonderful composer, and like I said, a good friend, and it, like I said, I await his phone calls because I know that's going to be something that's going to be very, very challenging.
Yeah, that's great.
And demanding and everything. But the end result is masterful. When you hear the end result, you say, how did he hear that stuff? I mean, how did he even conceive all of that stuff? We're bringing in non-Western instruments, mixing with Western instruments and everything, and going into the jazz tradition, and other traditions from other areas of the world, and mixing those things so well, so that you have like something that's very, very unusual. That I mean, Jason's like the Far East Side Band and the Burning Bridge Ensemble. I don't think there's anything that sounds like that anywhere. It's so. Yeah. So he writes really well. So he that whole legacy of Carla Bley and Mingus and Mulhall, Richard Abrams, Henry Threadgill.
Oh, I love Henry, man.
How Henry's like Henry's secretly a tuba lover. he loves tuba. I worked with him, for a while and stuff.
Oh, you did? Oh.
But stuff that he did with Marcus Rojas.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And Jose Davila.
Yeah,
Masterful
that's
writing.
incredible stuff. Yeah.
And then you see what, how its thing came through. Write it and they'll figure out how to play it. Those guys figured out a way to play. Threadgill's music is impossible, difficult, and those guys, they figured out a way to make it just happen.
Organic. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
So
amazing. Joe, what is still on the schedule for you for this year? I mean, do you have some plans to promote this new
this
album?
year,
I mean,
this year, besides the release of the Tuba Chronicles, Part 2, Volume 2, which is available. Downtown. There's a place called Downtown Music Gallery that carries it. My website, josephdaly.com, also carries it. Bandcamp, and CD Baby and stuff. So that's available for people that want to. But this year I'm gonna turn 75 years old, and I'm gonna do a bunch of world premiere of music of new music that I'm working on. The first one's gonna be on March 14th at Roulette. I'm doing a world premiere of two new works. One for antiphonal French horn choir, and it's going to be dedicated to Julius Watkins and other French horn players of that caliber, and then also a piece for tuba ensemble. I'm forming a group called the True Unity Bass Association, the True Unity Bass Association. Which is a mass tuba ensemble. So I'm going to be writing a premiere and original composition for them on March 14th at Roulette also. So that's going to be and during the year, I'm anticipating bringing back the Earth Tones ensemble, the ensemble that did the Seven Deadly Sins.
Fantastic.
To a new project, because a lot of people approach me and says, okay, what if you applied your orchestrations, the colors that you use, and the instrumentation that you use? Because the Seven Deadly Sins instrumentation, we had French horns, and extended down to the bass saxophone all the way up to the soprano saxophone. So we had the entire range of the saxophone. Trombones all the way up to the French horns and stuff, and then percussion, marimba, timpani, and so it was expanded. It's similar to if you see the early pictures of the Ellington band. I mean, the drummer would have
exactly.
I mean, it was. I mean, the band had, and then the replays would have clarinets, and I mean, it was. I mean, those early pictures of those bands, which is phenomenal. So you could have, but the early recordings reflected too, those colors that Ellington was getting out of the band, through the instrumentation that he was using and everything. So when I put together the big band for the Earth Tones ensemble big band, I didn't want just the traditional trombones and that. So I went down all the way down to the tuba and up to the French horns, and as far as the low brass colors and all that stuff. So people say, what if you apply some of that and use your orchestration color techniques on a couple of standards. So I'm gonna do a couple of standards, but basically. I like to do the second big band album sometime.
Beautiful.
This year also, and this year is also the Sam Rivers Centennial. At the beginning, he would have turned 100 on September 22nd. And we do the tribute concert, put the Ribby Orchestra together. Myself, Craig Harris, and Steve Coleman. We organized a Ribby Orchestra in New York Ribby Orchestra to do a performance of Sam's big band music. which hasn't been performed in New York in decades. Because when he moved down to Florida, he set up the Florida Rhythmic Orchestra. So the New York Rhythmic Orchestra is we did a performance of that, and I like to do another performance with them, and also do a performance at the University of Pittsburgh with the Rhythmic Orchestra. Because that's where his archives are, and they're very interested in not only archiving in music and making it available to the public, but they also are very interested in having some of the his music performed by as many as the original musicians that perform with the ensembles as possible and everything. So this year I will be celebrating turning 75 and doing mainly new works, premiering new works and stuff. So I'm gonna be a lot of writing and everything. I'm still with Hazmat Modine. We normally tour Europe once a year, so we'll be touring Europe with Hazmat Modine and everything. And hopefully Jason will show up with a project or something. That's it.
Beautiful, man. Yeah.
That's how I anticipate the year will be going.
Fantastic.
It should be a fun year.
Yeah, beautiful. Looking forward to all the new music, man. I mean, when it comes out and everything. So
yeah, well, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for doing what you do. And
thank you for taking the time, man.
Self-empowerment, that's the key, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks again, Joe. And if you're in Europe, I hope to catch you one day and we'll have a drink together or something. So
yeah. I'll be in Europe in June. From end of May till the end of June.
Okay, I'll check the dates.
With Hazmat Modine. Right. Yeah, we're gonna be I know we're definitely gonna be in Sweden. We're gonna be in Germany because the album is the group is based in Germany. We're gonna be in Paris. I think we have a Paris concert. With everything.
Fantastic.
So, if you go to the Hazmat Modine website,
I'll
go to my
out,
website. You'll see a posting.
I'll check it out. Yeah.
So you see what happens. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Thank you so much.
Excuse me.
Thanks so much for everything.
Well, thank you.
Stay strong and looking forward.
Day.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.